Here we go. We are live. Good morning, everyone. I'm in a new setting this week, but kind of cooler than where I normally am. And we wanted to come together every Friday. Kristin and I have been doing this. We're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics and the theme of this week, which is awareness, and how it's basically essential to any taking steps forward from this place of stuckness, which is something we've talked a lot about in the last few weeks, really. Like this overwhelming feeling of, this can't be my life. Like, I feel so stuck. I've stopped listening to my intuition. I need to tune back in, but I don't even know where to start. So we were talking a lot this week about how this feeling of stuckness, the way to approach it is from this lens of awareness. And I talked about this idea that everyone talks about mindfulness, like you need to just be more mindful. And mindfulness is not something that just comes instinctually to us. If it was easy, we'd all be mindful. But the thing that I think is more approachable and what we've kind of been encouraging you this week is that awareness is really a more approachable angle than trying to be mindful out the gate. I think eventually enough awareness can lead to mindfulness. But without the awareness piece, you can't just suddenly develop a mindfulness practice. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about, some of the things we talked about this week already, how you can start to cultivate more awareness, because let's face it, like we talked about last week, most of us are on autopilot in many aspects of our life. We just do the things that we habitually know to do, and we don't question anything. We just go through those same motions day in and day out. So I thought maybe Kristin, talk a little bit about like our journey to more awareness. And I don't know if there was like a turning point. I like to say there kind of was one for me where it was like, okay, what's the answer? We talk a lot about introspection, like being willing to get quiet and go inside. And the awareness part was really where I started. And it was around the idea of meditation for me, even though that's not approachable for everyone. Like, I don't expect anyone listening to be like, I'm going to go start a meditation practice today. That can feel like a lot. But for me, I know I needed to get quiet. There was so much noise. And when the pandemic hit, there was even more noise because I literally had a 4-year-old child in the room with me almost 24/7. So it's like constant literal noise, but then also the chatter in my own head. Like, is this my life? Is this really my life? Do I want this to be my life? Was the question too. Like, what am I doing to change my circumstances? And that made me go inward a lot within a pretty short period of time. We're talking like March of last year into like the summer. All of this work started happening. Like questioning everything, questioning who I was showing up as, how I was showing up, where I was just going through the motions, where I had lost my inability to even speak up for myself. I had always been quiet. I never voiced what I needed. I just was whatever I needed to be for everyone else. So that is kind of my turning point. What about you?
I think you hit it on the head with that feeling, that word stuck. I think, and with different women that I've talked to and coached to, is that word is, I think, what eventually pushes us all to look inward, to try to figure out what is going on, why do I feel this way, and to start questioning everything. Because that was definitely my story, is that just feeling overwhelmed with all the things, and it's like, how did this happen? How did I get here? Why am I doing this? Is this what I wanted? Is this what I want my future to be? And of course, the answer was no, definitely not. I want to get off this train. And so then it was, yeah, but what do I want? And I don't know. And how do I get unstuck? And definitely the awareness piece is so critical. And it's something I think sometimes it has become kind of a buzzword, just like mindfulness and consciousness, and and so sometimes yes, sometimes even those words become overwhelming. Just like you were saying with meditation practice, like people go, oh, I don't have time to do all this. How am I going to do that too? But it was that same, excuse me, allergies, that same feeling of all the noise, all the voices, and my mind in my head being the biggest, just these swirling thoughts that just kept going round and round, and then all the outside noise of life and things. And then of course I kept filling it with things, because we don't want to think about what we don't like or what isn't right. Even unconsciously I couldn't be anywhere that I didn't either have music or a podcast or something that was filling my atmosphere. And I think that was to quiet the voices in my head, but all it did was just make it worse. And finally I just one day said enough and just stopped and got quiet. And I think it was actually probably overdoing the dishes. It wasn't even, I want to encourage you ladies, it doesn't have to be, okay, I'm in my garden and I'm getting quiet and I'm, having this moment. It was like over the dishes, just stopped. No, nothing, not listening to anything, no one around, and just starting the questions. What do I want? Why am I doing this? What is this important? What is important? What's my priority?
Take the approachable route, like Kristin. I would encourage you. Like, some of you may be listening and being like, meditate, like I said, meditation is too much. Like, I can't even think about that kind of quiet, even though we could have conversations about what meditation actually is and what it could look like in your life. But if you just hear the word meditation and you're like, no, go with what Kristin's saying. Like, it can literally be in those small moments where you're just like thinking, I need to go inward a little bit more and take that moment of stillness, those pauses, because we don't do that. We just go through autopilot. This is what we do. And it's painful sometimes to think about digging up your demons per se, or like what's going on inside, because we're so comfortably uncomfortable. It's what I keep coming back to. Like, we're more afraid of the uncertainty on the other side of going inward, that we just stay in this like uncomfortably comfortable space. Like, oh, at least like it's the devil I know kind of thing. Like, I guess I can live like
that's
this.
so key. Yeah, absolutely. That's so key. That is what we all do. We're afraid to get quiet because we're afraid of what might come up.
We're afraid of what, the kind of fallout of that could be, right? Like, am I going to want to change my entire life? Because even that thought is really terrifying for a lot of us women, especially if we've given up on ourselves over the course of many years. Like, some people are thinking, oh my gosh, like I gave up my career when I had my kids. So the thought of like blowing up my marriage or my life is like, what would I even do?
Yeah, so scary.
It feels so overwhelming. And I've been there. I know exactly how that feels when you're like, I know I was meant to do something more, and I've been putting all these feelings on the back burner. I've been supporting other people. I've been putting my husband before me. I've been putting my kid before me, pretty much everyone. And I've quieted my own voice. And it wasn't until I went to that space of awareness and quiet that I started to question, why am I actually doing this? Like, when did I start doing this? And is it protecting me in some sense from the fear I have of all that unknown and what if? But it was almost like at least for me, I got to the point where it was like the what if, or the fear of not taking the chance, became more powerful to me than the fear that had been going on. It was like, I needed to take that next step. And some people listening maybe are there, maybe you're not there yet. But wherever you are is where you're supposed to be. I think we talk about this a lot too, like, honor where you're at in the journey. Because absolutely, it's a journey. And I was having a conversation with a roommate from college yesterday, and we were talking about this very thing, this inner work that some of us feel called to do. Not everyone does, and it's okay. We're not sitting in judgment of other people that don't want to dig into their past or their MO for how they're showing up now, because it's a lot. But we both know, like, it's scary, it's messy, things come up that you'd probably rather not experience in the process of becoming more aware, but it's so freeing on the other side. Like, you have to
Absolutely.
get through the quicksand almost to get to that side of kind of peace. Because how did you feel, Kristin, like, as far as inner turmoil? I think that's the only way I can really like come up with it. Like, there's so much going on inside you, and it just feels conflicting. Like, parts of you wants to hold on to like your current identity if you're in that place of questioning, yet at the same time you're like screaming to not be that person. Tell me
Yeah,
what
you
your
do.
feelings about that.
It's like, how do I change? You know, there becomes an expectation from those in your life. And some good, you know, some things I enjoyed about it, so that it was like, well, if I start to go down this path and I change who I am, will that change that relationship, or will that change the piece that I do enjoy, you know, that kind of a thing. And it was just all those kinds of questions. But there is the expectations, and I think that we as women, and especially, you know, Lauren, you and I have talked about with our personalities, we're people pleasers, and we want everyone to be happy, and we want to make life good for everyone, you know, kind of a thing. And so that's just something that you can only sustain for so long, because you can't make you know, you can't create an environment 24/7 that's going to please everyone in your life. And you know, just continuing to do that was just so stressful. And I'd gotten to the place where there's no question, you know, we've talked about with awareness in the body, and I had gotten, so there was this constant, I just felt like inside everything was like shaking all the time. My back, my upper back and my neck were starting to had gotten so tight and so tense, because I was the shoulders up all the time. Like, I would realize that's what I was doing. And it was just because you're so rushed and so trying to do all the things, just, you know, all the things that we think we have to do. And then for me, it was the scary thought of what was going to happen to all these people if I stop. Well, what if I don't do that? What will happen?
Yeah.
But I will tell you, you know, as much as it's difficult, and there will be some horrible things that come up, you know, for you, maybe there was also some beautiful things that came up as I started to take small little steps to change how I showed up, and that I wasn't going to do everything for everyone. It was an empowering feeling for those in my life, because they're supposed to be taking care of themselves too. You know, it's the piece that I was stopping their journey. I was stopping people in my life from what they were supposed to be figuring out, and for doing, you know, the doing things for yourself piece. And that it's such a hard balance sometimes, but I realized I had taken on so much, which was causing me stress and causing me physical problems. And I was taking away from their life and their journey and what they're supposed to be learning. And there was just such a freedom for me in realizing and seeing the ramifications of letting go some.
Yeah.
And nothing, you know, nobody, the world didn't fall apart because I stopped.
Yeah. We think it's going to.
We do. We really think. And then, you know, and then I did that piece, like, I just think about how arrogant is that in a way, you know, like that.
I hold
Oh,
all of the keys. Everyone's happiness
yes.
is on me. You will not be happy if I do not show up and solve all the problems, be the fixer, be the provider emotionally. Because really, we're talking about the work we do is really emotional as women, like the emotional support we provide. Because, you know, some of us are like financial breadwinners, and that's like a whole other story. But you have to think in terms of like what we bring to the table as women in our relationships. It's so much of that emotional support, and we're so giving to other people first before we're giving to ourselves. Like, I will give
Yes.
you everything of me, and I will leave nothing for myself. And then you kind of are left with this feeling of almost emptiness. I feel like
Oh, you become resentful. I don't know about you, but you start to become very resentful. It's like, I'm doing all this for you. Why are you, and you're still not grateful or you're still not happy or
just expect reciprocity, like we're going to get it in return. And then we build even more resentment. So like, why are you not appreciative of everything I'm doing here? What I'm sacrificing. I think that's another word that kept coming up for me, like all the sacrifices I made that were not acknowledged. Like, you don't even know what I've sacrificed, do you? Or it's like, are we just completely on different pages?
That's right. You have no idea what I've done. You don't care.
So it's like all that came out through the process of becoming more aware. And I know we've been talking about cultivating awareness in the body first, you mentioned, because that's really the place it shows up the most clear for us, but we neglect to see it as like the stress in our life or the inner turmoil that's going on. We want to be able to label it or like get a diagnosis for what's going on, but a lot of the times it's actually what's going on in here that's affecting all of this. So coming back to the body from an awareness perspective can be really powerful, because I remember a time where I was super stressed out 7 years ago-ish, living in Boston, feeling like I was at my worst with my health. Like everything just felt bad. I was convinced I was like dying of cancer, like something's really wrong. All these weird symptoms. I went and saw tons of specialists. No one could find anything. They're like, nothing's going on. And then my husband on the flip side is going, you think it could be psychological? And at that point, I was not ready to hear that.
Yes.
No, you're telling me I'm crazy? I'm making this all up. And that's
it's all in my head.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all in my head.
At that point, 7 years ago, like, no, you can't tell me that I'm creating this. But fast forward, some of those same symptoms I had 7 years ago would start to resurface at various points. And if I pinpoint them back to specific moments in time, circumstances in my life, they were always tied to really high stress moments in my life, or when I was going through something internally that I wasn't processing well. Like, I either wasn't having a conversation I needed to have, I was holding it all inside, I was feeling resentful, I was feeling like, oh my gosh, this is really my life, what's going on? Everything feels like a mess. And it's amazing, and I don't know if you've experienced this, when you get to the point where you can recognize in your body when this stuff is happening, because maybe people listening are like, yeah, I've had these like weird symptoms. I used to have muscle spasms, gut issues were like my number one. If my gut started getting all weird, like that's kind of a telltale for me right now. Something's really off. Like there's some dysregulation going on in my body, and that's how I'm coping with the stress. So my body's telling me, hey, time out. What are you doing?
Check in with me, please.
Something's not right. But it's like the first inclination is like, I need to go to the doctor and figure out what's going on because I need answers. And when you get to this awareness point where you're like, okay, what's really going on here? And you get really quiet, you take some deep breaths, because we talked about that, getting in your body, like, okay, you can actually start to calm your nervous system and resolve some of these symptoms on your own. Like I've actually seen this happen in my life. And this actually happened in the last month. Telling Kristin about a weird thing I was having with a symptom in my ear for like 9 months. I was like, I don't know, it feels like I have an ear infection. Saw ENTs like 6 times, and they're like, there's nothing going on in your ear. But I was convinced. And it's like, wait, what's going on in my life? It's a weird manifestation, but it's kind of also gives us something else to focus on, I feel like. Like now I'm not focusing on the stress, I'm focusing on the physical symptom going on in my body. But then when I take that time to just get present, focus on awareness, breathe, be quiet, I can actually start to regulate my own body. And my symptoms start to go away. Because I'm now kind of almost being honest with myself. And I don't know if you've had anything in your life to that degree where it's like, I literally controlled my own health, my mental health, my physical health, because they're tied.
Absolutely.
They're so tied. And we sort of understand it, I feel like, more and more now. Like, yeah, we know stress is like a killer. We hear this all the time. But it's so true. We make ourselves sick. And as women, I think we do it so much because we don't manage our stress well. We don't have a practice of getting quiet and being aware of what's going on for us.
So that's the
So
thing. We never take the time. We just never take the time to check in with ourselves, like we've been talking about this week. And that's the thing. We have failed to recognize, because we have the list and all the things and the go 24/7, that we don't even check in. So we don't correlate what's going on in our head and in our life to what we're our physical symptoms. I mean, and that's, the body can only do what it can do for so long, and then something's going to have to give. I mean, and the studies after studies, we've heard it over and over in the news and whatever, is what stress can do to the body and how it'll manifest and what it can do eventually if you don't manage it. And it can be so simple. You had mentioned about breath work this week, and that is such a huge piece, like just something that simple, like taking yourself back to that, can really start to regulate the stress and help regulate your body. But it's just not something that we ever think about. We don't take the time. We want it to, like you said, we want it to be something external. We want it to be, well, I have this physical ailment that I have to fix. And I don't want to negate that, because there are people
there
have
are real
legitimate
things.
physical ailments, and sometimes the doctors can't find them, and it takes a lot. So we are definitely not saying that at all, but the piece of the stress, and the life and the thoughts and the things that we can cause our own physical issues. And so the checking in with yourself is so important.
And I think that's
And
the
just,
main message too around it, is like, we're not saying you do not have something serious going on if you have a health something going on in your life. You have reason to be concerned. All that we're really saying is, have you taken the time to really be present in your body and look at what's going on in your life that could potentially be creating some manifestation in your body? Like, it's signaling to you, like, hey, you need to look up here a little bit, like, what's going on? Because women carry so much stress in their body, so much, and it can look so different for so many of us.
oh yes.
And yeah, breath work can be incredibly powerful, and it's something that's completely overlooked in the Western world for the most part. I mean, unless
Completely.
you have a very deep yoga practice, or you've somehow studied Eastern medicine, like you kind of know some of these things we're talking about. But I was telling Kristin the other day, it's like our bodies were designed to self-regulate, and the breath is the easiest, most accessible way to come back into your body and to either, raise your energy or bring it down depending on what you need, because there's different ways you can breathe to put your body in a state and your mind in a state that you want to be in.
Well, and think
So
about it, when you're stressed and overwhelmed, are you really breathing? Are you ever really fully breathing?
breathing up here.
Yeah, we're doing all these short breaths, like going to the next thing. Your body, it's not getting all through your cells, and your entire body is not benefiting from the air. It's keeping you alive, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's not really doing any benefit to the body.
Yeah. And just think about breathing more deeply is oxygenating your blood, which is making all of your internal organs work. So if you're constantly in a state of shallow breathing, think about what could be going on in your body. So how can we bring more awareness to how we're breathing or what we're feeling? Was really the message this week. And breath work is something that you can do anytime, anywhere. You don't need anything but your body. You don't even need a quiet space. It's not meditation. And it's like, if anyone's listening right now going like, I'm getting stressed out just thinking about some of the things you're talking about, and this has been happening to me, I would encourage you to take some time today and just sit and breathe. Like really breathe. Notice if you're breathing mostly into your chest and not your belly. Because you want to feel, like, that's why I say the mind body breath, where you have one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and you can physically feel where the breath is moving in your body, can be so powerful. Because you might notice like, hey, my belly's not even moving. The air is not circulating all the way. You're not breathing into your diaphragm or any of that. So can you focus on that? And when you do focus on that, your mind is really nowhere but in that moment. Because you're like, okay, I'm focusing on the sensation now on both my hands. And as you know, may or may not know, we suck at multitasking. All of us. Even if you think you're really good at it, studies show we are not good multitaskers as a species. Even though we like to say as women, we're better than men, right? We're better multitaskers than men. Yes. It's just because we have more things going on in our head. Men are more myopic, like, give me one task at a time. And sometimes I'm actually jealous of that, because it's like, I want that kind of focus sometimes, where my mind is not all over the place.
I have said that before. Oh, I wish I could do that. I wish. I work at it.
A switch you could flip and be like, no, I want to be in like man mind mode.
Yes,
like singular focus. But unfortunately, that's not our reality. As women, like, we're just wired completely different. Our minds are all over the place. But when you settle into something like a breath work practice, or just focus on your breathing, you get to have that singular focus. And it can be very soothing. You'll be amazed. I like to tell people to try it first in moments of stress, or where you feel like you really do need to regulate what's going on in your body. Like, maybe you just got in an argument with someone, or you're stressed out about a conversation you need to have with someone. Can you, in that moment, take even a minute? Because it really doesn't take that much to just breathe, like really breathe. It can be so powerful. And I gave another tool this week about checking in with your senses. And this is a technique I've been using as part of my meditation practice for the past year. And it's really about building that awareness of your environment, because we just check out. We don't even know what's going on around us most of the day. So if you can take 3 minutes to like tune into what's going on, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're tasting and smelling, like, and we have a sixth sense. I don't know if anyone like believes in that too, like your intuition. And if you're not tuning into all the other senses, it's hard to tune into that sixth sense, that intuition. So how can you start to bring more of that to your life, would be the question I would ask you. Can you start to fit in some intentional time to just be, to breathe, to feel what's going on in your body, to not run away from the feelings that come up? Because that, I think, is the first place we like to go. When we start to feel stressed, or like, ooh, I don't like what's going on, run.
I don't want to face it.
I mean, it's fight or flight. You can choose to be in the moment and feel what comes up, be in your body, or you can do what you've always been doing and just run from it and just keep running from it. It's a choice. So what final words would you give these ladies, Kristin, as far as helping develop more awareness in their life?
I think what I would say is, because this was a piece that I know I've mentioned this before, but the permission piece is, we women, for some reason, that piece that we don't give ourselves permission to stop. We don't give ourselves permission to be kind to ourselves and to take those moments and to bring ourselves back to center. So I would encourage, as we've been doing all week, is to take that minute or 5 minutes. And I know in the beginning, when you're rushing and just feeling stuck and overwhelmed and all the things. Even if you just stop, you don't have to sit, you don't have to do, we've talked about that too. Because for me in the beginning, it was just, my mind was all over the place. I didn't know what to start with next, kind of thing. And I would find myself, I was in the closet one day and it was just like feeling all the feelings that
Closet.
I just did that in my closet, standing there in my closet, closed my eyes and took several deep breaths. And it was truly, that's when I really started to believe in the breath work, and then started doing a little more research and realizing how good for the body it is. And it's like, why did I always resist this?
Yeah.
I always felt like it wasn't going to work. That's never going to work. How's that going to work? But it does. I promise you, Lauren is telling the truth. It really does work.
It does. It
So,
seems almost too simple. And I think that's where people start to reject it too. They're like, no, you can't just breathe your way to a better life. I'm like, well, it's actually a really good start.
It's a good place to start.
Learn where, because I mean, I go back to, we're all seeking control in our lives in some way, right? I want to control things. I want to feel like I have a sense of control. You can control your body through your breath and partially your mind. So that is, for us women that are control freaks, hello, recovering control freak,
Yes.
that I can control that. So that actually gives you something to feel good about. You're like, okay, this is like a thing I can control in my life and a tool I can use at any given moment, depending on what I need. So I want to teach more people how to use their breath. That will be kind of a goal as we continue on this journey. And I want to know from you guys, like, are you interested in this kind of stuff? Do you want to know how to better regulate your nervous system, your body, your mind, to bring you to that state of peace and calm and feeling like you can move from stuckness to action? Because, that's going to be a central theme here too. We all want to move from this feeling of stuck to action. We know we need to start taking action, but we don't know where to start. And that's why we've kind of been focused on this whole awareness piece and really doing that inner work, doing the deeper dive, because going down this path is what's ultimately going to set you down the path to freedom. Because I think that's ultimately what we all really want. Did you say, Kristin? Like the feeling of freedom. And that can mean so many different things.
Well, and just having choice, and to be able to make those right choices, you have to start small. You have to start to slow down, calm the body.
So yes, we'll leave you with that. We encourage you to slow down, tune into the body, because the mind will follow. It kind of has no choice. Like once you start to bring that awareness into the body, that the ease comes with it. I felt like I was able to start accessing what was going on in my mind much more clearly. It stopped being so noisy.
It somehow gets more organized, like it just feels like it all starts to fall into place a little better.
Yeah, it's like your filtration system.
Yeah, right. So true.
Right?
So true.
And I'll leave you with one other thought, because I know it scares some people to even think about doing some of this inner work. This part is super approachable for me, and that's why I like to always start here, because it gets messier the further you go into doing the work on yourself and really starting to uncover what's been holding you back, what's created you feeling this stuckness that's maybe permeated most of your life. But there is hope. I'm like, always lean on the hope, always be compassionate with yourself. And this is the first way we can show ourselves that compassion that we probably haven't been for many, many years of our life, if ever.
Yeah, we neglect the most important person in our life, us, ourselves.
So come back to yourself and let us know what we can do to help support you too. What would be helpful for you? Do you want to learn more about the breath work? Are you interested in meditation and what that actually looks like? Because I'm telling you, there is a lot of mixed messages going on about meditation in the world. And we may hear one version of what meditation is from someone and be like, that is not approachable. I can't do that. I was introduced to it in a way that it felt very approachable to me. So, and it's been something I've been able to maintain, but it's not for everyone either. But I know there probably are some people listening that are like, yes, what would meditation look like? How could I incorporate that into my life? And what are the benefits? Because that's really why we do anything, right? What do I get out of this?
Yeah. Yeah. What's in it for me?
Yeah, what's in it? Like any of this stuff, the awareness practices, I was like, the benefit is coming back to you. You finally get to come back to you. You get to stop living in this haze, this feeling of not really knowing yourself anymore. Is kind of how I think of it too. Like your identity is confused. You're like, I don't really know who I am anymore because I stopped tuning in.
Yes.
And is this life that I'm in right now what I actually want, or is this like what I've defaulted to because I've not examined my conditioning and kind of my default mode? So
What do I really want? Yeah, exactly.
What do you really want? I hope this was helpful. We will be back again. Again, comment, let us know what you like, what you didn't like, what we could dig into more, and we will see you next week.
Have a great weekend, everybody.